let's talk about today's big story, which is Amazon has gained creative control over James Bond. Now, this was kind of like a surprise because James Bond has been privately controlled by the Broccoli family pretty much since it started to actually make movies out of the books. But the two kind of stewards of the James Bond franchise, Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, have come to an agreement with Amazon, where basically Amazon has entered into a joint venture with these two to co-own James Bond as the franchise, but uh, Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson are stepping back from their roles as creative heads and basically handing the creative reins over to Amazon. So basically, they'll get to participate in the profits of James Bond, but they will have no actual say in what gets made. So Amazon can choose to make any type of spinoff they want. They can cast whatever Bond they want. They can, make whatever type of movie they want. It's all in Amazon's court right now. And the joke is that basically Amazon with Jennifer Sulke at the head of it, makes terrible movies, terrible TV shows, and they have no idea what they're doing, and they're going to DEI the heck out of James Bond. But some people are saying like, well, maybe there's a chance that this won't go the route of woke Disney with Star Wars, and that they'll actually treat the franchise with respect. To which I just have to say, look at Citadel, and you'll see what they have planned for James Bond, essentially. But Mr. Butters, I want to ask you, what's your take on Amazon taking over James Bond? You're muted.
I don't foresee anything good coming out of this, to be honest with you. I can hope, I can hope and pray that they come to their senses and just make a good James Bond movie, and cast some cool dude and have him go be the womanizing spy guy that he is. But I don't have any faith in him that that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to end up getting some, that dude that's on that dude, the Doctor Who guy, he's going to quit Doctor Who and go be James Bond.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen, bro.
That's what's going to happen. And I hope to God does not. I hope to God.
Oh my God! I think that's totally
what's
possible.
going to happen. Yeah.
He's like, I gotta quit Doctor Who to be playing James Bond.
Yeah.
Before we find them, I have to
He
do
comes
my
in
nails,
wearing a
guys.
rainbow suit.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I hope not, but no, that was like one of the most worst things I saw in the news this week. Was I just went, oh, here we go. Not James. I kind of thought James Bond was going to be able to weather the woke storm, and kind of get through this whole thing without any more real damage done to him. I mean, the character is already kind of jacked up, but yeah, I don't foresee anything good coming to this. I'm really kind of disappointed in the people that were in charge of James Bond. I feel like they kind of gave up. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. But whatever.
Well, Tom Connors Jr., what's your take on Amazon officially taking creative control of James Bond? How do you think that's going to play out?
Well, just so up front, like, I have no personal horse in this race. I didn't grow up with James Bond in my household. I've seen a handful of the films, and I understand everybody's reaction to this, and I understand why you would have this kind of a gut reaction to this. And much like the Doctor Who stuff you guys were just talking about, and yes, Odin was right. I stepped away because I said I had nothing to say about that. Anyhow, and that is funny if that Shooty Gawa guy is coming over to play Bond. No, here's the thing. Maybe allow me to not be the doom and gloom guy for once and say that maybe this is possibly a good thing, because what has been the problem in the last few years? Barbara Broccoli has wanted either a gay, black, trans, whatever, non-straight Bond, and somebody has been butting heads with her because we haven't had a movie in almost 5 years now. In fact, by next year, it will be the longest gap since 89 to 90, whatever it was, when Pierce Brosnan took over in Bond films. So somebody's pissed. And here's the thing. Amazon bought MGM a couple years back. The only thing they got out of the Bond deal was distribution rights, basically. So this, to me, makes fiscal sense. And they got Bond for a steal, really, if you look at it. They don't own it outright, right? Eon still owns some part of it. But what they have is creative control, is what you're saying, Matt. And to me, it's like somebody said, look, how much is it to get Barbara out of the fucking room?
Right.
I think that's what somebody asked. Said, how much is it going to cost to get her out of the goddamn room so we can actually get something done? And here's the negative side of it, because I know Amazon will exploit the fuck out of this. I think, because the first thing Jeff Bezos asked is, who do you want as James Bond? And he got bombarded with Henry Cavill. If Henry Cavill wasn't his first phone call yesterday morning, then I don't know what to do with Jeff Bezos at this point, because I think they're on the right track. But the thing is, get ready for all the spin-offs that you can, throw a stick at, basically, or a rock at, because at this point, that's what they're going to do. So for better or worse, I think you're going to get more James Bond. You have more of a chance of getting Henry Cavill as James Bond right now than you ever have before.
Okay.
Because at this point, Barbara Broccoli was never going to let him be James Bond. Just wasn't going to happen. You ever notice that all the names that were coming up were like Aaron Taylor Johnson, all these other white, they weren't going anywhere. So she was probably the one who was bottlenecking everything. So somebody says, how much is it going to take, Barb? What do I have to write on this check to make you leave? And get the fuck out of here. And they said $1 billion. And Jeff's like, done.
Go
Get
away.
the fuck out. Because here's the other thing too, and I get it. Everybody
Security
knows,
escort this brought out of here.
yeah, everybody knows that Bob Iger and Jeff Bezos are two of the biggest proponents of this woke shit. But they've also been rubbing elbows with Trump in the last few weeks at Mar-a-Lago.
That's
So
true.
something is going on here inside the industry. The creatives are going to be continuing to and trying to destroy shit. But I think the money people have come to their senses going, look, you can't continue to do this shit, right? And Bond was $1 billion film, the last film out. And they've wasted time. Nothing has come out in the last 5 years for James Bond at all.
I'm sorry. I got this image in my head right now of Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and he's got all these people in the room, and you got Zelensky and
When are we gonna fix
and Putin
James Bond?
and all these guys. Just like, hold on, guys, we got to fix something important here. Like Iger, you guys, and we didn't talk about James Bond. No, I don't care about the Hamas-Israeli war right now. We got to fix something important.
I get it. Have you called Henry Cavill? Seriously. This is getting out of control, Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, Shagsworth, one of the issues with being cast as James Bond is basically it's like a full-time job. It's hard to do other projects while you're playing James Bond. And Henry Cavill seems to have a lot of other stuff lined up at Amazon, such as Warhammer 40K and things like that. In fact, the three favorites, as Tom just mentioned on Amazon here, are James Norton, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Theo James, with Aaron Taylor Johnson being, I think, Jennifer Salke's favorite out of the three. But Theo James, he was recently on The Gentleman on Netflix, the Guy Ritchie series, and a lot of people kind of woke up to him being a possible James Bond as well.
Love that series.
Who do you think would be the best choice for James Bond, and do you think Amazon will be smart enough to actually cast them?
I like Andrew Taylor Johnson. I thought that was a good pick. The guy from The Gentleman, can't think of his name. I do like that pick. I think that would be a good one as well. If he were younger, I said this on Twitter the other day. I would be down for Idris Elba to play a James Bond. I know.
I wouldn't be against that.
But I just like him. I like him as an actor. I think he's got that, like, just his prowess is like kind of imposing. He can be a gentleman. I heard someone say, or maybe someone responded saying that he would be down to do maybe another 00. And to Tom's point, I would say that I think that's a good chance you'll see spinoffs from this because of it being part of Amazon. Because, I mean, now they want their hands in everything. But on the flip side, as much as I don't want to doom and gloom either, I would say that the mishandling with like Rings of Power, it shows me like, oh man, like I don't know if they're going to be like faithful to this character. And even beyond that, Amazon doesn't make their money from their shows. They make their money from, like they have this blank checkbook that they can just keep writing. It doesn't matter if it's a loss or not. So I almost see them almost like probably experimenting with some of these shows and characters in the future, which I don't know.
I don't want any experimenting done with Bond. You know,
No, I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
the formula's there. It works. So
Well,
Yeah.
Brian, you know, Amazon famously they bought out MGM, so like they have access to Stargate, they have access to RoboCop and Rambo and all this other stuff, and they've just kind of squandered these IPs. Do you think that they're going to be doing anything different with Bond?
Yeah, you know what's funny is, so I actually have a friend over there that works. I'm not gonna say where. I don't want to get me fired or her fired or they fired. I don't know. So I'm talking too much. But it's funny because Stargate and RoboCop were actually connected at the hip. So like the same teams that were working on Stargate were working on RoboCop, and after the actors strike and the writers strike and creative differences between the people, the creatives that they were going to hire to run to show run all this stuff, it just sort of like stalled out. And like the last time I talked to the guy, he was like, yeah, we still have weekly meetings about it, and the meetings are pretty much the same every week. It's like, oh, we're still looking for new talent. So I think that, man, if anyone needs a Doge treatment, man, it's Amazon, because they have so much redundancy over there. It's ridiculous. Like, imagine being on a team where your entire job every week is to have pointless meetings about the same exact topic every single week. Still looking. I couldn't imagine.
That's where I can believe that Bezos doesn't really look into what he's buying sometimes before he buys it. Because this is kind of similar to Lord of the Rings. I think he saw the same thing happen to him with MGM. Because when he bought it, he's like, shit, I thought I was getting James Bond, and I thought I was getting this, and I thought I was getting that, not just the distribution. Because all he really... Look, we love RoboCop. I'm one of the biggest RoboCop fans in the world. And I think Stargate is great. But I'll be the first to tell everybody, they're not big, huge franchises. They're very niche franchises. And that's why Amazon's kind of just like, yeah, we'll get to them eventually. But when it comes to James Bond, this is a big deal.
Right.
So if they screw this up, this is on a much higher, bigger level than
I disagree
Lord of the
that
Rings.
Stargate isn't a big franchise.
I think Stargate is a huge franchise.
I know, I'm hurting every nerd's fucking feelings by saying
no,
it.
you're not. No,
But it's true.
It
Sorry,
legitimately
guys.
is, though.
You've got
No,
Star
Stargate
Wars
is
here,
huge.
Star Trek here, Stargate's somewhere down here. Right above Independence Day, maybe, as far as like
Maybe,
people
yeah.
talking
Yeah,
about
I
it.
would say Stargate's. I would
I'm
say,
talking
yeah,
about as far as
I would agree with you.
popularity.
Stargate might be third on that list, but Star Trek and Star Wars are two of the biggest franchises in the world. So they're playing in the big three. That's not bad.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like on a
Well,
grand scale.
I'll say like Stargate's a worldwide franchise. People around the world have been watching like the various different series for a long time, and it hasn't been destroyed the way Star Wars and Star Trek has been.
Which is why it's more viable, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but as far as James Bond goes, the team, when I remember talking to them, the teams that are working on them are not. They're not individual teams. It's like a group of sort of disconnected creatives, and I think maybe Tom's right. I think they just backed the dump truck up and said how much to get this chick out of the room, so we can actually get some work done, form a team, and make it happen. Fact is, though, like last time we checked, like they've been trying to sort all that out just so they can start working. I think you're also right. Henry Cavill should be the next Bond. That would be a beautiful pick.
Well, Odin, Amazon's been trying to get a big budget spy franchise off the ground for quite some time. They tried it with Citadel. They had that one, I forget what it was called, but it had Wonder Woman in it, Gal Gadot. And they also
Heartbreaker? No, what was it called? Something of the heart. Something with hearts.
The Heart of Stone.
Heart of Stone, yes.
Heart of Stone, and then they had the Gray Man with, what's their names? Captain America and the Fall Guy. But they've been throwing good money after bad to try to get a spy franchise going. They just can't seem to do it. But now that they're freed up to use James Bond, there's talk about TV show franchises, books, comic books, podcasts, all types of stuff that they plan on doing. But Amazon's not really good about getting movies into theaters. And James Bond, at the end of the day, is a theatrical franchise. So how do you think they're going to be handling this IP?
It's a really good question, and I think their casting of Bond is going to be the key indicator of exactly how seriously they're taking it and what we can kind of expect from them going forward. A big part of the process of just getting a film made and getting it out in theaters is how much money is being put into marketing. And one of the issues that Amazon has always had is that whenever they either make their own movie through MGM or whether they are, buying the rights to a movie and then putting it out in theaters, is that their marketing has never really been all that great. That's why their MGM films have really not done that well. I think that I forget exactly when the MGM deal went through. Did they have MGM distribution rights by the time No Time to Die came out?
I think it was around 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So
yeah, it was right around that time. I think the film was already in production and almost done or done.
Okay.
But yeah, Amazon bought it in the process of, and like I said, that's where I think they learned. All we have is distribution.
Yep. Exactly. And even with that movie, and it came out in 2021, and the people who, oftentimes will say, oh, it made $700+ million during a year when a lot of films struggled. But then I always like to point out, yeah, but just a few months later, Spider-Man No Way Home, broke everyone's expectations and showed that no, people can be driven out to the theater. It's just, it has to be a movie that actually gives fans kind of what they want. And I don't think No Time to Die really did that. So though it was a better performing film, probably because of its IP, it wasn't because of Amazon. It wasn't because of Amazon's marketing of the film. And I think that that's like a big issue they have, is getting people to actually go to see their movies. And so now that they're in creative control, it doesn't really bode well for them if they're going to follow the same pattern that they have for their other theatrical releases. But that's why if we do see a change, if we see them, if they cast someone like Henry Cavill, for instance, as James Bond, and they start to show like, hey, he's, if reports come out that he is giving his feedback and that he's being listened to in some way, right? That he has have some, for all we know, I don't know how big of a Bond fan he is, but he's a nerd, and so that is of course something where it's like nerds oftentimes have multiple fandoms that they can enjoy at the same time. It would be something that I think would give a lot of people a little bit more confidence. And if they're then able to do marketing right, and I don't know who they need to contact. Really, they should probably contact whoever marketed Barbie, because that film's marketing is why that film made as much money as it did. So they need to find like some type of, similarity there to really get the marketing for their films going, because that's the way that they'll be successful. But they have to get the person right first. If they don't have a good Bond, if they don't get that choice right, then it doesn't matter what they do. It's not going to end well for them.
Man, if they go with Cavill, that movie's going to be successful, like instantly. It'll be a $1 billion movie, and another franchise will be back on track. It'd be a huge move.
Well, and the problem with their films are right now they are the advertising, right? Like, because a movie like Red One is interesting because I don't know how you viewed it, Odin, when you reported on it, but like the thing with that movie is it was already pretty much prepaid for, and it being in theaters, it didn't matter how much it made, because all that was driving people to go see it on Amazon Prime. That's why it was on a month after it was in theaters. So basically, all them sending their movies to theaters is just like it's just basically advertising for their streaming service at the end of the day. But I do think that you make a point. Like, I do think Bezos wants to put Amazon/MGM on a theatrical stage on a level with the rest of the guys, and Bond is a franchise that can get them there. Right, like that was my point earlier about Stargate and RoboCop and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't matter how much we love these; they're not on a level to where you can put a movie out in theaters and actually make almost $1 billion or make $1 billion and make the splash that Amazon needs right now to be kind of like part of that game. Because we can look at it and go, "Oh, how quaint and cute it is that they keep putting these movies out," but really, all they really are is just advertising for Amazon Prime. At the end of the day. Like a movie like Red One was paid for by all the product placement and all that other crap. It doesn't, we'll never know what it really cost or made Amazon at the end of the day because they don't have to report that crap.
I do think that too, that the James Bond in general is a franchise that requires a big name. Like some franchises have banked on like the unknowns to sort of carry it and like make them into someone down the line. But like you look at all the James Bonds from the past, like they were someone like in that sort of era. Like everyone knew the name, they knew the person, and it was the guy
I disagree with that.
Well, maybe not Daniel Craig. Maybe he broke the mold there.
Sean Connery, nobody knew who he was until he became Bond, right?
Really? I thought
Sean Connery.
Daniel Craig.
Sometimes you have to slap a woman.
Timothy Dalton. Even Roger Moore wasn't like a huge name. So like they have
Well,
Pierce
history.
Brosnan was probably the most famous Bond when he was cast.
Yeah.
And that's where this will probably be if we get Henry Cavill or Aaron Taylor Johnson or somebody like that the fans actually want, that'll be the first time they've actually listened to the fans since then. Because otherwise that was when, after Pierce Brosnan's work, to me, if you like, what are you doing? You went against the grain. They went and got this Daniel Craig guy, and I'm not a Bond fan. I'm just looking at it from the outside going, yeah, this doesn't look or smell or feel like James Bond to me.
The real question I have for you guys on the panel is, what is the probability that Amazon hires a Kathleen Kennedy-like showrunner or, Kevin Feige,
13.5%.
who basically oversees the entire Bond franchise and just runs it into the ground? What do you
A
guys
Bond czar?
think about that? A Bond czar.
50-50 at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
78.7%.
47.2. 47.2.
It's very specific.
I mean, you have a good point though. Like a lot of people think that look how successful Marvel was. We need a Kevin Feige to do it. Look how successful it's been lately. How's it going now? Like rethink that entire concept. You should be hiring people that love the source material. You do that, you'll get fans on board. It'll be cakewalk.
There's also been a lot of talk about setting the Bond universe back in the 1960s and 70s.
That'd be all right.
When the movies originally first start hitting the theaters, and basically like bypassing all like the modern day audience stuff and going back to the roots of the Cold War and the 60s, all the stuff that was going on there. Basically what Austin Powers did, but non satire type stuff. What do you guys think of that idea?
Nah.
Well, then you have to be like misogynistic. That wouldn't pass now,
Yeah,
Like,
plus, imagine Q walking up there and being like, "Look at this brand new cellular mobile phone I have," and it's like 3 feet, large. No, like a big part of James Bond is also the gadgets and all. It wouldn't work going back to the 60s.
I would say most people actually have, and I've said this for a while, and you can actually play with the retro futurism of the classic style.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't hate that idea at all.
Yeah, you come up with gadgets and other things that kind of never existed and never will, but they feel like they would have existed in the original Bond films, and that makes sense. You put Bond in an era where it's okay to have him be a womanizer, right?
Right.
That's
Wait, don't we have a modern day James Bond that works with the Kingsman series? Womanizer, technology, badass.
Yeah.
Like, you can do it now. You don't have to set it in the 60s.
You don't have to, but you could. And I think, why not? Why not do it that way?
it helps with some of the continuity too, because
Sure.
you've had a situation now where you've had 50, 60 years of James Bond films, and they try to have some kind of connective tissue from my understanding, but it's kind of difficult when you're 30, 40 years removed from some of these films.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, like nowadays, James Bond would be fighting people who are posting memes on the internet.
he said bad
and you
words.
got to lean
Forget it.
into what made it famous, right? Instead of trying to be James Bourne or any of these other franchises, Bond was always kind of like both a mix of what made James Bond with whatever the popular thing was at the time, right? Whether he was fighting ninjas or in space or like whatever it was at the time that was going on. It was just you found a way to blend in with Bond, and it's like they lost that too.
I just got this image in my head of Bond going into Q's office. And he's going, "We have this meme of this puppy doing a Yahtzee salute. You must go after this person called Count Dankula." And it's just like, oh my god, yeah. I kind of wanted to be back in the '60s now. Let's do that. Let's just embrace it and go with it.
I think that Cavill should play Bond, and he should team up with the Avengers to go back to Middle Earth in his Space Marine armor to destroy Morgoth. I think that would be the best.
Wait. They got to fight Iron Man and the Avengers. You forgot.
Oh, true. That's
and then Darth Vader shows up and fucks them all up.